Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday with me, Ryan, aka Sifu Messiah. This is a weekly show which covers everything from the world of Star Citizen over the past week. Links can be found in the description for everything we discuss, so let's get on with it. This week we have 10 questions for a writer and an artist. Around the Verse is in the UK for one more show, plus with the release of 2.1 to the live servers, we take a look at what there is available. If you are still to sign up to the RSI website, please use my referral code as shown on screen or in the description, and you'll receive 5,000 United Earth credits which can be spent in the Voyager Direct store for your ships, your character, or whatever you choose. You don't have to spend anything to sign up, it's only once you pledge that I'll be granted an RP point, which will get me some little rewards in the future. So in this week's 10 for the developers, we had a writer and an artist. First question being, will a medic have any visual identifications that designate them as a medic from anything else? And they said that they do have a concept in production for a Navy corpsman. They have designed the medic insignia, and they said they will have some customization in decorating your armor with sort of Red Cross colours so people will know not to shoot at you, or if they do, they will obviously suffer more severe consequences. But in terms of armor and so forth, they say the Marines will be very modular, very much like the ships, so you'll be able to swap things out as you please. It is still in the works, so there's nothing solid to show as yet, but armor suits will obviously be able to carry lots of ammunition and so forth, whereas medical suits will probably have smaller pockets for more med pens and more medical devices. So, moving on. I would like to see the next great Star Citizen writer. Is this going to happen? And they said that they don't know if there's going to be such a thing, but you can still put your work to Star Citizen and they will decide whether or not to include it in the official lore and story. So if you are a writer, do send your work to them, as it may get featured or even put into the verse and adopted as part of the official lore. So it's definitely worth trying anyway. So third question, is there any plans to make heavy armor prohibitive for flying a craft or staffing other ship stations? Now this was asked a while ago in fact, and they said that currently the Light Marine is stationing a lot of the ships. It's pretty much the base male size, so what we have as the Light Marine now is the base male size. Heavy Marine won't fit in the chairs, as Light Marine is also a certain height, so a lot of it is height dependent and they don't want your head sticking through the roof. It will be limited to the size of armor, so if you are a Heavy Marine you will not likely be able to fly the Merlin for example, but we have heard, and they said also here, that they do have actual flight suits for pilots, which is needed when piloting, I think it was either the Gladiator or the Hornet. So you may have to suit up before heading into battle if you are the pilot, but also if you have a giant gun on your back, you may have to take that off first before you can sit down. So it's going to feel quite realistic in the sense that you won't just be running around with 10 guns able to fly any ship. So if you actually came to a ship and you were trying to get off a planet, you would have to dump maybe your weaponry if you were unable to get into the seat. But certain ships like the Merlin will have little personal spaces for you to put your weaponry, so when you do land you can go and get them again. Anywho, next question. Will citizens with citizenship have other clothes than other civilians? And they say, no, civilianship does not really denote you're in a separate class. Just as if you're a registered voter, it doesn't mean that you wear different clothes. You will still be shopping in the same stores as everyone else. The biggest dress influence will be where they live. So, for example, Terra will have their specific style of clothing and Nyx will also have theirs. So eventually you may be able to tell where someone originates from in that sense just by what they're wearing, which is pretty cool. So next question, can you tell us about the power armor in terms of visuals and function? Also, how do you make sure that it isn't the go-to endgame armor? And they say that they're going to build up armor, your items, your clothing, everything. They will all have different slots. And heavy armor will obviously take up more slots. It'll also make you slower. Your visibility will be reduced. So it's all about compromise. There will not be an ultimate armor, more the best armor suited for a certain circumstance or situation. So if you had a particular mission to do, your power armor may not be suited to that, especially if it's maybe you need to sneak. So if you just constantly don your heavy armor or your power armor, there will be circumstances where it will be more of a hindrance than a help. Now, when you have your armor and so forth, you will see things actually attached to them. So if you are carrying 3 frag grenades, then you'll see these 3 frag grenades physically on your armor, and if you use one will obviously be reduced. This also plays both ways when you think about it. So if you see someone with 3 frags on their suit, you will know that they've got frag grenades in their arsenal, and you will keep an eye on that and make sure that you don't have any frags heading your way. But it won't be allowed to be too crazy. You won't be able to have huge armoured shoulder pads and still run around and function properly. It's all got to function within the real world as if it would in the real world. And they say the visuals are very current day, but with an added spice of things like from the movies like Aliens and Blade Runner. So very, very cool. I cannot wait to see some armor. There was a picture that I'll put up now on the monthly report, which looks fantastic. Next question, do all clothing have item ports. Can you give us a general overview of how it works? Will pockets serve as item ports as well? And they say currently each clothing item has a specific item slot. Now they're not saying that if a piece of armor has 8 slots, you can fit 8 pistols, but each item slot will be a specific size. So instead of being able to fit 6 mags, you may just be able to fit 6 med pens. Clothing layers are still in the works, they say, so they can't say if pockets will be functional yet, but it would be cool to need to change into your work overalls to have extra pockets, especially if you're a mechanic and you're in your flight suit and you land at your crucible. You'll want to get into more of a more apt clothing item. So if you put your overalls on with more pockets, extra pockets, if you plan to work on a ship, that would be very, very cool. But also, they think that if you walk around town in your full armor setup, then you may get some unusual looks, just as you would if you would walk around in a full military gear around your local town. So you would most likely need to get changed if you are concerned about how the NPCs will think of you. But like I said, everything will be visible, so if you had 3 grenades, you'll see them. You may be able to take a backpack to get more gear and fill that up instead. Currently, the Marines have magnetic attachment points, and if you look at your leg holster right now, it is attached to a magnetic plate. The problem is, this kind of looks more mediocre, where it's easy just to stick them on the side of your armor and claim that it's a magnetic plate, but that is the current thought in the armor that we're using now in Crusader. So second to last question, will player customization allow us to blend the hero characters' faces? And they say no. They have scanned hundreds of individuals, so you could potentially figure a way to get and mold them close to one of the hero characters in the game, but they don't have a preset hero face. So final question, when did the UEC move away from paper money, or do they still have some? And United Earth credits came in the Mesa era. It was always a digital currency, as the gold standard is no longer around. There may be physical data currency which you can find around, so perhaps if you come across a ship, there may be a little data pad which may have some currency on. But when Spenditure comes online, they can see how currency will work better and keep things relative to the law and balance it properly for the game. Anyway, that was 10 for the developers. Some good questions. Quite interesting having these 10 for the developers with the 2 different departments. Let me know what you thought. Let's get on with Around the Verse. So, like last week, this Around the Verse was from the UK office with Sandy and Erin again. And they started off by saying that they are just fixing the performance issues with Crusader. A very important job, but they're getting around to it. So, straight on to news from around the verse, starting with the CIG office in LA. They say that they know about the Constellation performance issues in Crusader and they are working to get them fixed. It is a high priority for them. Also, another high priority is the Retaliator, which is not taking off after repair. So they are looking into that and getting it fixed as quick as possible. They're also doing some work with components to make them more efficient. So on to Austin, Texas. The shopping prototype review before the holidays has turned out really well. They said at the end of this week they should have something to see. They're also doing a pass on the hangar expansion for the Starfarer. There's a new section with new lighting passes. Very excited to see that in the hangar. On to Foundry 42 in the UK, they say they're doing some work on cargo. They've been working on it for a while, and with cargo obviously brings scavenging, piracy, escorting. Lots involved with cargo itself. They're just waiting on an object container system, and then hopefully they'll put it into Crusader for us to try out and give us more of a purpose in there. So after that, Jared had an interview with associate producer Mark Hong. Do check out the link below if you are interested in watching that. And from there, we had a little style guide talk through of the Jean Scout, which is currently in Greybox. They say they want it to feel high-tech and foreign. It's inspired by nature, so insects especially, but also the lotus flower, which is something we saw early on in its development. It has futuristic next-gen textures to show that Jean are high-tech, but also to keep the game at a sort of next-gen level. The style combines tribal with electronic. They're hoping to have a holographic style UI for the cockpit HUD. They say it's potential, but they don't know what can be achieved until they actually try, so fingers crossed it'll look something cool. We also saw a materials style sheet. They're using lots of carbon fibre, fractal patterns. Then we got to see the cockpit concept. They want it to feel open and minimalist. It has hints of Lamborghini, sort of pushing for the high-end feel. There's an image with an example of how it will be landing. You will enter from the side and the glass will sort of rotate and then peel back like a flower bud. Steps will float out and expand, and then there'll be a slight bob when the pilot stands on them. Probably a bit like Flight of the Navigator is the image I get. But anyway, from there, the most valuable post is our very own grey-headed gamer for his continuing contributions to the community. An absolute great chap. highly recommend subscribing to his channel. Do check him out. And the sneak peek is the Jean Scout, which looks landed, and it just showing us that it's in grey boxing phase. So that's coming soon, I expect, hopefully in the hangars within the next month. Anyway, that was a quick around the verse as usual. Tell me your thoughts. What are you excited for? What aren't you excited for? So the most exciting news this week, as you have probably heard, is that 2.1 got released to the live servers. With this patch came many features including bug fixes and balance updates, but in addition to those fixes, the best part of this release is that you get to fly the Freelancer and the surprise of the Vanguard. The Sabre is available in the hangar if you own these ships. Do take a look. It is very exciting. If you don't own them, then be sure to get to the landing pads and see if you can crew up with someone who does. I'm sure there's lots of people willing to accept crew. Other features include the Million Mile High Club is available for those, again with appropriate packages. You can invite people in your party. There's a couple of new audio sliders, one for dynamic range and one for your ship computer speech volume. They have added a new weapon, which is the Apocalypse Arms Revenant size 4 ballistic Gatling gun. Now this is available to buy in the Voyager Direct store. It is also the current front-facing Vanguard weapon. Ships now can only lock 2 missiles at once, except for the 325A, as it has a better targeting system so it can lock 4. They will be assigning these to each ship appropriately regarding their own targeting systems. The Scythe and the Glaive have also had their top speeds changed. The Scythe is now able to go at 195 meters a second, whereas the Glaive is now 205 meters a second. The Kovalek shipping hub has received a new mission overhaul. You open your Mobiglass and you can find the Seeking PI mission. When doing this, the endings and the paths you take are different depending on how many data pads you find. So if you collect them all, then you'll complete the mission, but if you don't, then you'll still complete it, but with a different ending. Talking of the Mobiglass, it has been streamlined as well. It's a lot more responsive now, quicker and easier to use. Characters' movements have had a few tweaks as well, plus lots of other performance issues. There's lots and lots of work that has been done, and I am sure I speak for everyone when I say we really appreciate it. CIG, do get in and check it out for yourself. There's lots and lots of fun to be had, as you have probably seen on streams, videos. Very exciting stuff. If you haven't signed up, be sure to use my referral code. So also this week we had a new data cache post titled Project Wardeen. I have not read it yet, so I can't shine any light, unfortunately. There was a behind the scenes post this week as well, focused on the star map team, showing how that came to be. We had a new monthly report showing us what was achieved in December. I am currently working on digesting all of this and putting it into a video which should appear sometime this next week. For CIG subscribers, the new January flare is available, which is the AV-8 Battle Armor Replica, which was worn by the UEE Marine shock troops during the siege of Tiber. Apparently it featured the revolutionary inline biomed system, which was able to identify any injury sustained by the soldier and relay that back to his squad mates and the superiors. And supposedly more troops came back from combat in this armor than any other set. Finally this week, the new jump point is available for subscribers also, so do check it out. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and thank you to our subscribers, plus a massive thank you to our patrons as you make this possible. If you like what we do and want to help us make it better, follow the link in the description to our Patreon page to learn more.